gentlemen.
You're locked into JJ and Alex. With the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
NCAA Tournament action on the women's side of the bracket. Gonzaga and Utah tonight. See if the Utes can continue. You know, it's interesting in women's basketball, it's so much more chalk. It's so much NC State just now beat Tennessee in the second round. And there's a handful at the very, very top. What's good about women's basketball is it's gotten a lot better in terms of the competitiveness. Right?
Yes.
So, if you're wondering, Utes tonight, that's at 8:30 tip, yeah? Yeah, 10:30 Eastern. Whoa. Yeah, 8:30 tip tonight for
But they haven't suffered through the one-and-dones and all the craziness of the men's side. So that's why I think it is chalk, because you don't have the teams that bring in the talent of South Carolina. Those players will stay for years. You did
have Duke upset Ohio State, the 7 over the 2 seed there, which, again, I love it. And Utah men's basketball, by the way.
Nice little run.
Look at somebody, and this is why we have the argument of whether or not you'd rather play in the NCAA tournament. Not rather. You'd always rather go to the NCAA tournament. But What I'm saying is when the invite doesn't come and you're the first 4 out or you're the last 4 out or whatever it is, in Utah's case, they were one of those teams who were, even toward the end, they were still kind of on that bubble over those last couple of weeks. Wild to think that initially when the invite comes to the NIT and you saw so many of those teams throw the invitation in the garbage, didn't even open it, right? And then you go, well, what's going on here? This is the argument. Right? This is the argument.
It's like the bowl practices in football. You just get extra time.
Unless it's the Potato Bowl.
Those are the practices you don't want.
Those are the practices. The Potato Bowl is the NIT of bowl season. I've told you this. Matt Baiamonte to my left. Nice enough to join today. And also joining us on the program, our show is always brought to you by G2G Bars, an all-natural ingredient, no preservative protein bar that tastes phenomenal. And that's what brings you the top of the show every hour. But then let's get to the cut here, and let's get to our own Sam Farnsworth. Let's jump in with the cut.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And also brought to you by the Doug Smith dealerships in American Fork and Spanish Fork. They're going to take care of you at Doug Smith. Just say you heard it on JJ and Alex. I want to get the special treatment. And that special treatment is what they do for everybody, by the way. So get that awesome deal on that next vehicle at Doug Smith dealerships. Sam Farnsworth joining us on the program now. Sam, lots of travel for you over the past couple of weeks. I know that it wasn't a fun end yesterday for Utah State's season, but it was nonetheless a massively cool season for this Aggies team. Before we get into Danny Sprinkle's next destination, let's talk about where he was this year in this Utah State team and how that thing came to an end. Obviously, not a close game with Purdue, but must have been a ton of fun for Danny Sprinkle and his guys to have the experience that they had.
Yeah, 100%. And it is unfortunate that I don't think a lot of people, if anyone, thought Utah State was going to beat Purdue. Of course, in March, anything can happen. But the way they lost, that's the unfortunate thing, because you probably had a lot of eyeballs that had never seen Utah State basketball yet this year watching that basketball game, the round of 32 NCAA tournament, and they were probably wondering, well, what's all the hype about this Sprinkle guy? What's all the hype about this Utah State team? This is nothing. So that's the unfortunate side of it. But overall, this group of guys, no doubt, they had a lot of fun. The conversations that I had with them leading up to the game and even after the game yesterday was that this is something that they're never going to forget, that this is, no matter what happens to them the rest of their lives, they will always be connected to one of the most remarkable college basketball seasons that we've ever seen, where a coach comes in with only 3 returning players, bringing in 13 new faces, most of these guys had never played basketball together before, and they go on to win 28 games. They win the outright conference championship, and they go to the NCAA tournament and win a game in the NCAA tournament. That is remarkable right there. And that big reason why so many people thought so highly of Danny.
Sam, it's good to talk to you, man. Matt Baiamata here. I'm filling in today, my friend.
I love it.
I love it too. Hey, so Utah State was in that thing for a little bit, and then there was that huge run at the end of the first half. Was that something, from your vantage point, Purdue forced upon Utah State, or was it just simply cold shooting and Purdue capitalized?
I think it's a combination of three things because, like you said, about midway through that first half, Utah State was doing great. One thing I noticed that I really thought that Utah State was doing very well defensively was the way they were kind of collapsing on Zach Edey, right? Every time he got the ball, you'd see 2 and 3, usually 3 guys down on, and they were frustrating him. They were making it tough for him to even find an open, easy look or find an easy open pass. And, Utah State was doing enough defensively, and they were making enough shots offensively to be hanging around there. But then so that's that's the first part I noticed. But then when things started to go south, of course, they go on that 16-0 run. Utah State they were running out of gas. You could tell already. I'm like, man, Great Osobor is already huffing and puffing, and we're still about 9 minutes left in the half here. So they were running out of gas. They were definitely exerting quite a bit of energy trying to slow down what Purdue was doing. And then, foul trouble was another issue there. Obviously, Zach Edey's going to get a lot of calls because he is so big. He is so physical. He's going to draw contact just about every single time he touches the basketball. And, a guy like Isaac Larson, I think at halftime Johnson, I think he had 3 fouls in about 6 minutes played in the first half. And that, there's no way Utah State's going to do anything with him being having that small of a role when he had such a big role in the success that they had up to that point. And then, and then in the second half, just Purdue is more than just Zach Edey, and we saw that. He was outstanding, but in that second half, they were just knocking down shots from all over the floor, 60% shooting in that second half. And there's not a lot you can do when a team is shooting that well and you're not making as many shots at the other end. So just, the perfect storm came out for the last 30 minutes of that game.
Yeah.
And Utah State got left behind.
I was talking with Scotty G about this at the start of the show, Sam, and I was like, boy, you don't want to take away from that season or in any way, and you can't. The Aggies, of course, at that point they were just having a tremendous season. They get the win in the NCAA tournament that they hadn't had since 2001. Scotty G gets to call his first tournament win that he was so excited to call, and that's part of the deal is that these players have that experience. Now the question is, with Danny Sprinkle on his way to Washington, does this stay intact a little bit? Does this lineup are you going to see a bunch of people again go with Danny Sprinkle to Washington after he got his big career changing deal up with the Huskies?
So I think the only way Utah State retains a majority of the roster here, well, I guess there's 2 ways to do it. One is if you hire someone that's already on staff to take over as the head coach. Not sure if that's something that they're interested in doing or not. But if they do that, then obviously there's some familiarity, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean guys are going to stick around. 2, the other best chance at retaining as many players as possible is for Diana Sabo to hire someone quickly. But you also want to make sure you're getting the right guy. So you don't want to just jump the gun and hire someone because they're available and then hope that they can re-recruit some of these guys to stick around, because this year's team is a much better basketball team than last year's Utah State team that went to the NCAA tournament. And that team lost all but 3 guys, right? So with Ryan Odom leaving and Danny leaving, Darius Brown, he's a graduate anyway. His career is over, but Great Osobor was with him at Montana State. He's with him here at Utah State. Why would he not follow him to Washington, right? A guy like Josh Aduje, he's outstanding. He loves Danny Sprinkle. I just kind of get the sense and the feeling that if if Sprinkle offers him the opportunity to come up to Washington, he would follow. And so I think there is going to be some major turnaround from this roster from a local perspective. And I think a lot of BYU and Utah fans would be interested in this guy too. But Mason Falsliff, is he going to stick around Cache Valley, or is he going to enter the portal? Because he proved to be a very valuable player. And not just him, Isaac Johnson too, right? Those are two guys that if they entered the portal, I think would get heavy interest from both of the other two major D1 programs in our state. And they would probably get some interest from Danny Sprinkle at Washington and maybe other programs as well. I don't expect this year's team to look anything like next year's team, to answer the question, bluntly. I think there's going to be some major turnaround from this roster again.
What do you think Utah State should do? Because it feels like the last couple of hires they've had have been of the same mold. Do they keep doing that, finding an up-and-coming coach from a smaller university, or should they promote from within?
I mean, that's the golden question. You can go back and forth on it because you want some stability. Promoting from within might create some of that stability, or hiring a more seasoned veteran, I guess you could say, head coach, maybe an older guy like the Toledo head coach. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but his name has been kind of rumored as maybe a target for Utah State. He's in his 50s. He's probably not looking to make a major jump in his career. Maybe he is, I don't know, but someone who's maybe been around the block a few more times than a young head coach might be someone who's willing.
Is it Todd Kowalczyk? Is that who?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. And so, someone like that might stick around for a little bit. But at the same time, if you're okay with accepting the fact that Utah State's never going to have the money to really pay a guy like Danny Sprinkle to stick around, or Ryan Odom to stick around, or a Craig Smith to stick around, if they just don't. They don't have that. They don't have those resources to do that. And if you're okay with that's what we are. We're a launching pad program. If you can continue to have NCAA tournament appearances and success on a year-in or every other year basis by hiring these young guys that are only going to stick around for 2 to 3 years, maybe that's okay too. But it's just too unpredictable, right? I think stability is the way to go. The question is, can they find that stability? That's the tricky part. And so I think Diana Sabo and the committee, if Jerry Bovey's involved again in the hiring process, whoever it is on that committee, I think they've got to be working pretty quickly, though, because if they don't, they'll just get left behind with whatever's left out there.
Have you heard at all if I know that Washington obviously was one of these places that Mark Pope's name was thrown around there too. This is something I can ask Matt as well. But, I mean, I guess we'd never really find out, or we won't for a while, if Mark Pope was maybe talked to Washington or if there are other jobs that have been floating around in there. Obviously, no news is good news if you want to keep Mark Pope as your head coach at this point of the year because, teams like to pounce on guys who had really good seasons, who had, those types of years. But do you think Mark Pope, or do we know if Mark Pope was approached at all about that Washington job? Because he's from up there, played there for a couple of years before he went to Kentucky. Yeah, so tell me what the vibe is with Mark Pope and his stability in Provo.
The stability for him in Provo, I personally don't know and didn't hear much about. I heard some rumblings that he would be on a short list of candidates for Washington. But, when I was out in Indianapolis this week, I had a few off-the-record conversations that really led me to believe that this deal with Danny was going to happen pretty quickly. So I didn't think much of Mark Pope as a potential candidate there after that. But the one thing BYU has that Utah State doesn't have is they've got more funding, more donor, they've got more money that I think, and Matt, you could correct me too, but I think there are more people interested, whether that's Ryan Smith or other groups, interested in supporting that program by, look, if we have to donate more money to pay the coach more to keep them around longer, I think they would be able to find those resources. That's something that Utah State, I just don't think will ever have on their side, unfortunately. But BYU has that. So if Mark Pope does become a candidate out there, I think BYU has the opportunity to at least step up and make it difficult for him to choose to leave from a financial standpoint. So it just feels like there's a little more stability for Mark in Provo than any coach going to Utah State.
Do you feel like after watching Purdue in person, that's a team that can win it all?
100%. And, I said this on Twitter, and I was saying this in a conversation earlier today that I thought Zach Edey was good, but not really that good. As I was watching him, that was my tweet about halfway through the first half. And then we got to halftime, and he had 21 points and 13 rebounds and 2 blocks. And I'm just like, okay, he is a lot better than I was giving him credit for. I still think, there's parts of his game that can be exposed, but it's not just a Zach Edey thing, though. In that second half, I saw so much more from the rest of that roster that I was like, wow, this is a legit Final Four team. This is a legit national championship contending Purdue team. I would not be shocked at all if they're there on that final Monday playing for a title.
Sam Farnsworth, our KSL-5 television colleague, and of course covered the Aggies in Indianapolis. And man, it's been a fun year, obviously, to be able to follow our teams here locally. Everybody kind of outpacing where I think people thought where they're going to be. If there was going to be a team that we thought was going to be in the NCAA tournament that may leave the other ones out, it was going to be Utah.
Yeah.
But Craig Smith and his team, obviously, he's got a lot to work through still. And there are a lot of question marks because, it's recruiting questions, it's long-term stability questions. Where is this Utah program now that we have the ability to be able to see not just that they didn't get in the NCAA tournament, but that they're still a really talented team. They're making the run right. They're making a run right now in the NIT. They're going to host their third game in that tournament. So how are we supposed to take this Utah team going forward and the Running Utes basketball program, of course, that has such a rich history?
Yeah, this is going to be a critical offseason for them as they get ready to join the Big 12 as well, right? How do you replace guys like Gabe Madsen or Brandon Carlson, right? How do you replace those guys? They are such big and key figures on the roster. Davon Smith's been outstanding. There's a lot of questions there with that roster, and can Craig Smith fill the right holes that he needs to be able to compete at the Big 12? Because we saw how competitive that conference was this year, a little more up close and personal with BYU being over there. Now Craig Smith, this is he's got a contract that would be very difficult for Utah to buy out, but at the same time, kind of feels like this next year is a little make or break for Craig Smith with that Utah program, and so. Playing in the NIT, everyone's got opinions about it. It is the NIT. It's not the NCAA tournament. It is the little brother tournament. But playing in it and having a little bit of a run in it is still a big deal, I think. And it's a big deal for your program. It does keep your name in the spotlight longer than teams that lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. People are still going to be talking about Utah basketball to an extent for at least another few days, a week or so here, and that puts the name out there in the spotlight. It probably helps a little bit with recruiting and just notoriety and things like that as they prepare to join the Big 12. So I think it's important. And then again, this offseason is going to be critical from a recruiting standpoint for that program. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot more fun next year, right? College basketball with BYU and Utah in the Big 12. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where those two teams line up in the conference next year. I expect BYU to be similar to where they were this year, if not better. Where will Utah enter in? Because, clearly anything is possible. We saw that with BYU this year.
Speaking of BYU, you just answered a question I was going to ask you, so I'll switch gears. And I got to squeeze in a BYU question just because I haven't talked to you since BYU got bounced by Duquesne last week. But what do you think BYU, from a roster perspective, Sam, needs to do different to win an NCAA tournament game?
I don't think a lot. I like the kind of the makeup that Coach Pope has built with, how many players can you rely on to score? There's, at least 8 guys on that team that you could rely on to give you a 10-point night, right? And so I think that's huge. What I think is when BYU has been at their best this year, for my opinion, is when they've been able to, when the outside game hasn't been working, when they've been able to get it inside, and it's usually been a Fousseyni Traore thing, right, where he's just been able to get those buckets at the rim and suddenly change the dynamic of that BYU offense. When Foose is playing well, BYU is at their absolute best. So I think moving forward, you have to find a couple of pieces that are similar to his style while you're still producing all of these kind of wing type players that can still chuck and drain threes. And I know some BYU fans don't like the live and die by the three thing, and I'm not a big fan of it either for any team. You got to have an inside presence. I think BYU had it, but I felt like that inside presence was a little inconsistent this season. So moving forward, I would like to see a little more of that. But from a roster standpoint, I mean, it kind of feels like BYU's maybe even going to be a bit better, next year, just with the players that are coming in. And so I think that was the biggest issue, though. When it's clear, right? When they weren't hitting their shots, that's when they were struggling the most, and it bit them in the rear here in the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Sam Farnsworth, Sam, take a nap. I think I told that to Scotty G, but I mean, it's been a long last few days for you as well, and so get a nap in because at some point later in the week you're going to also end up filling in for JJ.
That's right.
So. Get ready for some Sam Farnsworth one-liners later on in the week. Sam, thanks for the help, man.
I did some Googling.
Yeah, that's good.
I did a little Googling.
You knew that was going to happen. We were just looking, though. I was trying to check your NCAA bracket picks against our system. It looks like you're not showing up in the top 20 so far. Where are you at right now?
No, I don't even know. It's terrible. I'll just tell you that it's terrible. Look,
is your Final Four intact, though?
I believe it still is. I'm going to have to double check. I'm almost positive my Final Four is still there, and I'm a firm believer if your Final Four is still there, you still have a chance. But
yes.
Look, maybe I'm a pessimist. I've lost faith in some of our local teams at winning in the tournament. But this year, as I looked at the bracket and I was looking at BYU, I was like, yeah, they should win that first one against Duquesne. Yeah, I think they can beat Illinois. And then I suddenly saw a Sweet 16 matchup between BYU and Iowa State, and I'm like, well, BYU can beat Iowa State. I had BYU in the Elite Eight. What was I thinking, guys? What was I thinking?
You weren't thinking incorrectly.
A lot
of the country felt this way. They were the number one bracket-busting team for a reason because it was an easy path.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that easy, I guess.
No, not easy enough.
I had to tell my 7-year-old, I go, hey, maybe don't put BYU in the national championship. Like, I don't know. That's probably not. I know you bleed blue, buddy, but come on, like, let's be smart about this thing. I love making picks. I don't know. I pick the brackets with my kids, Sam, and so I'll sit down there and I'll go, okay, you tell me, BYU or Duquesne? Okay, BYU. Okay, BYU or Illinois? Oh, BYU. Okay, BYU or Iowa State? Then they're like, oh, BYU. And then I'm like, hey, let's rethink that. Let's go ahead and rethink that. So you should have called me last. You should have called me last week when you're making those picks. It's always funny to see how everybody. Look, your bracket's not worse than Jeremy's. It's not worse than Nate's. Our boss Nate is our boss Nate is like in an embarrassing spot on the bracket.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Uh-oh. No, I know it's a bad deal. Bad deal. It's not good that the sports boss in the building, although we've all been there, like where you lose your bracket and you go, I do not know what's going on here. All right. Sam, we'll chat with you later in the week, man, and thanks for hanging out with us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Sam Farnsworth. Wait, where's your bracket at, Matt? I mean, is your
It's fine. I've had better, I've had worse.
Yeah, I'm very serviceable right now, and I do have
I'm in the mix.
My full Elite Eight is still intact.
Really?
Yes.
I'm 7 of 8 in the Elite. I lost Kentucky.
I'm middle of the road. I think that well, for reference, Jeremy's got 74 points. So I'm feeling pretty good. 16 or at 86 points right now. Which
I got my Final
Four
in champ.
Stop.
So here's my Elite Eight.
Let me guess. Houston.
My Elite Eight is
Who's your champ?
UConn, Iowa State.
Okay.
UNC, Arizona.
Got it.
Houston, Kentucky, they're out. And Tennessee and Purdue. So 7 of 8. It's not bad.
Okay.
I'm hanging. I do have Tennessee winning it all. So that was quite the scare over the weekend.
And I thought Texas was going to get beat by 30. Gosh. And they were on their way to it, but man, didn't happen. Love the tournament. If nothing else, there's always somebody you can make fun of because of their bracket. All right?
Just wait.
Oh, here goes.
I'll get my turn.
You told me that last year. I ran away with that thing. Okay. We'll come back. We've got more to go around the corner. We're going to jump in and have a little discussion we're going to have our NFL Blitz conversation a little bit earlier. It is a Jazz game day. You know what that means? We're going to get you ready for Jazz pregame coming up at 6 o'clock. They're taking on the Mavericks over at Delta Center tonight at 7 p.m. So stay right here. More to go around the corner. Matt Baimonte filling in for Jeremiah Jensen. JJ out this week. He deserves it. And we will come back and we'll have a little bit of an NFL discussion. Yes, Zach Wilson's name will come up. Stay with us, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
All the latest news and notes from the league and the locals in the NFL. JJ and Alex bring you the NFL Blitz on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You know, Zach, I feel badly about Zach in some ways because, last year would have been he would have been a first time he could just sit back and watch a master at work, right? Mm-hmm. And he's never had that. He's been in the fire from day one. And I think that's what he needs. He needs to be in a place where he can observe for a while. And he's got the skill. He can do everything. There's a reason we drafted him at number 2 overall. And I have confidence that he'll get there at some point.
Can that happen here? You have Tyrod, you have Aaron.
I think it's, it's possible. If we don't trade him, we're going to keep him. So it's possible that he could do it here. It's probably better from his standpoint. It's probably better if he changes faces and gets to a new place and kind of, he can wipe this. Sorry. He can wipe the slate clean, in that way. I think that would probably be better.
There's Woody Johnson, everybody's favorite.
Does
NFL
he know
owner.
what's best for anybody? His teams have been bad for so long.
This is the guy. Let me give you the equivalent here. By the way, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. Matt Baiamonte joining me today in place of JJ, who's taking some time off. Matt, this is the equivalent of a used car salesman being like, look at this piece of garbage. Can you believe this car? And then him later on going, these are pretty reliable vehicles. Like to sell it to the next person. You know what I mean? That's exactly what he's doing here. He already dogged him. He dogged him.
Yep.
So then Woody Johnson coming back going, he's got all the skill. There's a reason. We're smart. Then we took him second. It's like, no, you're just making yourself look like an idiot. Woody Johnson, come on, man.
Everything he said is true. It's just the fact that he already ripped on him before is what makes that so ridiculous to hear.
No, he definitely.
Look, here's the thing that's so annoying about the Zach Wilson situation. So remember before he got drafted, there was the Robert Saleh audio clip where he was like, hey, man, we're going to build you up. This place is going to be like, it sounded kind of nice. Like, hey, they're going to support you.
Of course.
And there hasn't been a lot of support. Like, the best thing the Jets can do at this point, just release the man. Let him go find a backup job somewhere. Because if you're an opposing team, what would you trade for Zach Wilson? A seventh?
Well, that's what I was going to say. What did Justin Fields command?
I thought it was like a
6th round pick, right? It was a 6th round pick.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you.
He has had better flashes than Zach.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I will say there is a guy like Justin Fields and a guy like Zach Wilson. By the way, do you think Chicago's a good place for a quarterback to go? There's a reason Caleb Williams and his camp are, they're probably really considering not going there. And then next year, Shedeur Sanders.
Just like Zach should have maybe considered not going to New York. There were concerns from Zach and his camp with the Jets before he got picked.
I love how, so Eli Manning did this to the Chargers, right? Wasn't that famously he walked away and said, no.
Yeah, that worked out just fine.
Appreciate the interest. We're going to go in a different direction. They're like, we just drafted you. He's like, yeah, go ahead and don't. Go ahead and not to, please. So Eli Manning is the example everybody's holding up now for Caleb Williams.
He would be wise to do so.
Deion Sanders, Coach Prime is already saying, don't be a crappy city or a cold weather city. He's basically saying, Chicago, don't try to. When Caleb Williams says no to you this year, be ready for a round 2 of no from us next year, because that's not going to happen. So
if you look at Chicago, though, and the Jets fall under this too, and those aren't the only 2 teams that fall under this.
But big cities, it makes it worse too.
Big cities, it makes it worse.
Yeah.
And cold cities that aren't in domes make it worse, too, because then you're fighting the elements half the season, which makes it more difficult.
The other half of the season, you're going out to Miami, and it's stifling, and you can't.
You look at the past 2 decades of quarterback play in these towns, there's not a great quarterback that's come through there. For the Jets, it might be Aaron Rodgers this year. We'll see. If it's not him, is it Mark Sanchez? Old Brett Favre? Like, there hasn't been a great track record there of good quarterback play.
Chad Pennington?
That was a long time ago. Vinny Testaverde, that's a good pull. Vinny Testaverde. Chicago, it's like Jay Cutler's probably the best quarterback they've ever had. Him or Jim McMahon.
Mac Mahone, come on, man.
McMahon won a Super Bowl and he's fantastic.
Harbaugh was better than Cutler. Come on.
Harbaugh?
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh. We had this discussion last week, I
think. Jay Cutler was good. You guys are Jay Cutler was good. He wasn't great. He wasn't
good on his
special.
reality TV show for a while. That was good.
I can't believe you guys are ripping Jay Cutler like he was some bum. Jay Cutler had some good years in Chicago.
Nobody's ever gone on this station and said, hey, Jay Cutler is underrated.
He kind of is. The point I'm making, though, is those franchises don't support their quarterbacks.
Of course.
And they don't get good quarterbacks.
51-51 as a Bears player.
Oh, there you go. To honor Dick Butkus, I'm assuming.
They would give it. Chicago would give anything for the Jay Cutler era.
No kidding.
After what they've been through the last little bit.
Wow.
You'd rather have Jay Cutler or Rex Grossman? Jay Cutler or Nathan Peterman? Jay Cutler or Kyle Orton?
Oh, boy. I like Kyle Orton. He's underrated.
He could have held a candle to Jay Cutler.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. Kyle Orton. Hey, put him on the list of former Bronco quarterbacks.
Can you tell me where Kyle Orton played college football?
Oh, no. Was it...
Come on. It's a university we've already discussed today.
Oh, boy. There's been a lot of discussions about a lot of schools today. Where did Kyle Orton go to
Purdue,
school?
Baby.
Oh, he
the
was?
Boilermakers.
Easily the second best quarterback in the history of Purdue football, right? Third or fourth best. Come on,
Drew Brees is number one. Yes.
Yeah.
Aiden O'Connell, number 2.
Yes. And then, by the way, speaking of Jay Cutler, best quarterback in Vanderbilt history. He's a tremendous career as a Commodore, right? He was a Vandy guy, right?
Jay Cutler was a Vandy guy.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go. Hey, speaking of quarterbacks, speaking of guys who have been coaches of Drew Brees, Sean Payton says he is, quote unquote, comfortable with Jarrett Stidham as a starting quarterback. How long does it take? How long does it take for the lie detector to go off on something like that? Like, I just wish we had. I know. Hollywood always has fake technology. It's like CSI. They're like zoom in, enhance, zoom in, and enhance. And, there used to be like the fake technology where they go, oh, no, it's reading his voice. He's lying. Like, and they have like it up on the screen. I think 24 used to do that. He's lying, and I think somebody did that on Sneakers, on the movie Sneakers. He's like, no, he's lying. They need that technology because Sean Payton wouldn't have been able to get through that conversation. We are very comfortable. And that's what you do. No, get the beep ready, the censorship beep. Because this is what you would do. It's not even a censorship beep. It would just be to tell you that it's lying. We're very comfortable with we really like Jarrett Stidham's on our team. Like, that's the only truth you can tell. Jarrett Stidham is on the roster. And then he looks around and goes, see? I knew it. So Sean Payton says he's comfortable with Jarrett Stidham. I don't know what they're going to do. By the way,
they're comfortable losing a lot of football games so that they can acquire a lot of draft picks.
Exactly right. They're comfortable with having him in the short term because that's going to work out for them. Russell Wilson, he did it. He sold his mansion in Denver or wherever it was.
Denver's not a cheap place to live.
Cherry Hills.
It's a desirable place.
I was like, Jeremy, how much do you think that a house was that Russell Wilson bought? And he was well below the number. And I frankly would have been like $5, $6, maybe $10 million for a house. He just sold his house for $21.5 million.
Thank you guys. Broncos country.
Let's ride.
By the way, at a $5 million loss. So, no problem.
He had a $5 million loss?
It's not a $5 million loss. It's still an $80 million gain for him that the Broncos are going to be on the hook. Yeah, I'll sell it. I'll take a loss. I don't care. What's a loss when you're getting $85 million? Oh, he's taking the veteran minimum. What a champion of men. He's like, bro, I'm getting
let me ask you this.
44 every year from these guys.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
So Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL. He's rightfully so touting J.J. McCarthy as being the best quarterback in the class.
There's a lie. Okay.
Who do you think should be the number 2 quarterback selected? Because it felt like forever it was Drake May, and then Jaden Daniels out of nowhere became the guy, and now we're here like, who do you think is the second? Because it can't really be debated that Caleb Williams is the best quarterback prospect. He is.
Caleb Williams is going to get picked first.
What's your top 3 quarterbacks?
I'll say Caleb Williams just until proven otherwise. Then I'm going to go Jaden Daniels. Then I'm going to go Michael Penix.
Penix?
Oh, yeah.
You take Penix over Drake May? You take him over Bo Nix? I like Bo Nix a lot.
I am just going full off of, well, there's a little bit of Husky bias there, too. But
fair.
Jeremiah Jensen made it pretty clear, didn't he? He was his number 2 on the Heisman vote that he had this year, right?
I think that's what he said. He was not a Jaden Daniels
Penix
fan.
was 2. He was above Bo. He had no. I'm sorry. He had it. Michael Penix, then Jaden Daniels, then Bo Nix, maybe. Either way, I think that Penix was pretty high up on his list. I like Michael Penix 3rd, and I know he's not going to go there, but I would take him before I took J.J. McCarthy for sure.
Oh, I wouldn't. I think J.J. McCarthy's good, just like Jay Cutler.
Yeah.
Good at handing the ball off.
He's really great at handing that ball off, which you got to be good at in the NFL. You know that.
He won a national championship, you guys. You can't be a bum and win a national championship.
He did not have a great national championship game.
And also, it's also worth noting, too, a lot of great quarterbacks in the NFL today were not number 1 picks.
That's true. No,
there's been a lot of great mid-round, second-round, third-round quarterbacks.
You would do well to get picked.
Not
I think
first.
Mel Kiper. What did Mel Kiper have? He has like 5 quarterbacks going to the top 12 picks.
You don't want that to happen.
No.
If you're Penix or Nix or even McCarthy, 10 and below is where you want to be.
Yeah. Okay. There we go. There's our NFL roundup. Went a little bit earlier today just because. Our NFL Blitz brought to you by Gillette Heating and Air. Right now, get the seasonal maintenance done on your furnace for only $59. See GilletteHVAC.com to make an appointment. Ask them about firing up your AC and what that's going to look like as well. So Gillette Heating and Air Conditioning, GilletteHVAC.com is the website. We'll come back. More to go around the corner. Our Utah Utes football spring update coming up next. So stay right here, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And now your Ute Spring Football Update on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You got to admit, Chet Holmgren does look a lot like Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, okay? There are a lot of memes that float around. And so when I think about it and I go, it kind of looks like Abraham Lincoln. The internet will do this investigation before you even think about it. So then I think about it. I start typing it in. Chet Holmgren, and it's all Abraham Lincoln. And you're like, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Google, thank you very much. So yes, Chet Holmgren looks like Abraham Lincoln. And you will never get me. So when he's doing this commercial with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, it's on TV during March Madness last night, I was like, dude, Chet Holmgren looking more and more like Abraham Lincoln every day.
Lincoln wasn't 7 feet tall, though, was he?
He was 6'6", though. He was tall. No, maybe
with the hat.
He was with the hat. He's 7 foot. Yeah. No, he's one of our taller presidents. It's one of those things I'm supposed to know. Maybe he was only. Okay, hey Jeremy, put this down for first time we've ever Googled how tall.
I did a little Googling.
Abraham Lincoln height for a president. That's as tall as you get. 6'4". Yeah. So there you go. Lyndon Johnson was the next tallest after him, but the tallest president was Chet Holmgren. So there you go. My favorite is when they go, the height and weight. So they list him. I love it. He's listed. Abraham Lincoln was listed at 6'4", 175 pounds. Got to put a little bit of meat on those bones there, Abe. Honest Abe.
Will he be able to hang in there in the low post?
James Madison, by the way, if you're wondering about, he was the shortest, but he was also the only president to never exceed, listen to this, 100 pounds. I was born 100 pounds. James Madison was never over 100 pounds. That is crazy. All right. James Madison, by the way, eliminated from the NCAA tournament. I don't know if you saw that. What was it? What's their mascot?
They got killed.
They did get blasted. They're the Dukes. That's right. So I felt bad for him because it said Dukes Energy on the front. Did you see all those T-shirts? So they were making all these for everybody.
Horrible T-shirt given to all the. Come on.
So there was Purdue Energy, right? I saw that one. Which, by the way, a boiler makes energy, right? So there's kind of something we're there.
Except for a Boilermaker is expending the energy to move down the tracks.
So that guy, yeah, sure. But so they had Purdue Energy, then they had Duke's Energy, except for the Dukes were playing Duke. And you have your opponent's name across your chest, they're beating you by 40 or whatever it was. That's not good. You can't do that. Here's our Utes spring football update brought to you by, this is my favorite read that we have currently. Matt, you have to keep your mouth shut during it, okay?
All right.
Get an in-depth look at the ups and downs of Nickelback's roller coaster career.
Look at this photograph.
When Hate to Love Nickelback comes to the big screen for 2 days on March 27th and 30th only. Book tickets now, nickelbackfilm.com or KSLSports.com, where you can enter to win the tickets. So there you go.
I might have a good time at a Nickelback show. You wouldn't? Would you rather see Creed or Nickelback?
Boy, that's an all-star list right there. I've got some sound from Cam Rising. It is now official. We get to hear from Cam Rising. Here's what he had to say, and it's not just about Cam Rising. It's about other guys who did not get to play last year because of injury. Brant Keithy, Micah Bernard. He brought up both of the guys. He brought up both Micah Bernard and Brant Keithy. Obviously, they want to get the gang back together again.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you can go play with guys that you have that chemistry with already, it just makes it that much easier, and even adding some new additions just makes it just that much better.
Okay. You can hear the smile on his face, right? For all the things that Cam Rising is, he's not a phenomenal interview, but he is exciting on the football field, and he is excited to get back onto it. So Ute fans must just be absolutely excited about getting this guy back. Now, here's the other thing. This is not a staff that has changed a lot. Obviously, Kyle Whittingham is the model of consistency, and it's the same thing when it comes to his assistants. And Cam actually brought that up, talking about the continuity of the staff.
It's all the difference. I mean, they know how to orchestrate it and how to make sure that we're practicing right. We're not going too hard or not doing too little. So having that and that knowledge and just football is unbelievable. And that's why I'm excited to have those guys, and I know the whole team is as well.
The luxury, Matt, of not having a quarterback battle goes without saying, right? Like where you're able to just have that consistency, and not just that, a proven winner to come in and to be that guy again. That's a huge deal for Utah and Utah fans to be able to go, hang your hat on this thing, man. He's a guy who you can count on.
Yeah, especially considering he's been around the program a long time. You already touched on the continuity of the staff. He's got continuity with the players. I don't think it's a surprise in college football and college basketball that teams like, let's use Purdue as an example in college basketball. Edie's been there a long time. Matt Painter's been there a long time. Yeah. That's an experienced program that's played a lot of basketball together. Of course they're having success. And I think you saw that in college football the last couple of years with Georgia. You had Stetson Bennett there for a couple of years. Then Carson Beck comes in. I know they didn't go to the playoff last year because they lost in the SEC championship game, but they've had a great run. And they've had the same staff, Kirby Smart, quarterbacks that have been there for a while. Like, that is a huge plus in college athletics right now, and that's got to be the most hopeful thing that Utah has with this transition going into the Big 12 is that they have so many guys that have been there for so long along with the staff. Because there was a time under Kyle Whittingham where that was not the case, sure, right? Where the offensive staff was changing every single year. Now they've settled in, and that makes a big difference.
All right, let's take a break. We will come back, and we're less than an hour away, just about an hour away from the Jazz pregame show right here on the Jazz Radio Network. Jake Scott, Tim Lacombe. They're taking on the Mavericks tonight, this time at home across the street at Delta Center. We're going to jump in, though. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation maybe the most shocking headline that I've read. It is absolutely, if you are a Chiefs fan, you do not want to miss out on this. But this also gives you a little bit of the vibe as to the political back and forth that happens when a professional team is in your city, even the defending world champs. We'll come back. More to go right around the corner, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.